Hello, and welcome to Anxiety Hacks, the podcast, where we explore practical strategies, expert insights, and personal stories to help you conquer your anxiety and find relief. So, I'm your host, Kate Hudson Hall, and in each episode, we'll dive into various techniques and resources to help you support your journey towards a greater well-being. So joining us today is Carolyn Wallace, a psychotherapist, spiritual director, and archetypal consultant with almost 20 years of experience in guiding individuals through transformation. Caroline specializes in helping spiritual women transform their relationship with fear, empowering them to embrace unapologetic, radiant confidence. Drawing from her expertise in archetypal consulting, psychology, spirituality, and holistic practices, Carolyn offers practical tools and wisdom to help you navigate anxiety. Her extensive background includes a 500-hour yoga teacher certification from the renowned Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, as well as certifications as a Shake Your Soul dance teacher and a Reiki master. Through engaging conversations, we'll uncover the connections between mindfulness, movement, energy, and emotional well-being, providing you with actionable steps to alleviate anxiety and cultivate inner peace. So, Carolyn, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Oh, so we were just talking before we begun about anxiety, and you were saying how you have had a real difficult time with anxiety over the years. So do you want to talk
Yes,
a little bit about
I'm
that?
someone who knows the experience of having anxiety well. Yes.
Yeah.
So I kind of base my life and work around sort of calming myself down, and then in so doing, I can help others also now to calm themselves, calm their nervous systems down.
Yes. Yeah. And so for you, your anxiety journey, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it started obviously in childhood. I mean, I've just someone who's always had some high anxiety, which turned into full-blown panic disorder by the time I was 14. So I've really had a difficult time. And, over the years, I've gotten much better as I've become a professional, as I've, been in different social circles that have been supportive and affirming. I've done a lot of healing work, some good therapist on my own. But then when I discovered archetypal work, I realized there were even more resources available to me, and really taking on the energy of certain archetypes has significantly improved my capacity, not just to manage my own anxiety, but then to really support and lead other people into doing it as well.
So for the listeners, could you explain to them about archetypes? If then, maybe
Yeah,
they're
well,
familiar.
my training, it comes from Carolyn Wallace, the renowned spiritual teacher. She wrote a book called Sacred Contracts. And so that's where I learned about this modality for healing. So this all comes from her program. My certification comes from her archetypal consulting program called, I think her organization is called CMED, the Carolyn Wallace Educational Development Program. So that's where my certification comes from. And she talks about the 4 survival archetypes, which are archetypes that all of us have. There are 4 archetypes that we all have, and they're the victim, the child, the prostitute, and the saboteur. So what I started noticing is that when I am feeling anxious in a certain situation, the archetypes that are most prominent for me in those situations are generally the victim and the child. I feel like I'm powerless against some outside force, and unable to protect myself, which is also something a child might feel, right?
Yeah.
So what you do if you're feeling those archetypes, there is a path forward for each of those 4 survival archetypes to step into The light side of the archetypes is what we call it, instead of the shadow side. So if the victim is feeling powerless, like there's some unseen force that's keeping them down, that's not allowing them to be happy, that's stronger than they are, the child archetype might also embody that. What we need to do in that case is take on a warrior type of energy. A warrior energy has boundaries, very strong boundaries, becomes sort of the adult in the situation and says, wait a minute, I'm not going to allow this anxiety or this outside situation to control my life. I'm going to take back control. I'm going to have boundaries around this. Or if you're more embodying the child archetype, I don't know how to, get around this thing that's I don't have the power in my life to overcome this anxiety, this situation.
Yeah.
You need to take on something we call a sovereign energy. And the sovereign is simply an adult with the maturity to say, to have that outlook to say, okay, I'm really embodying a childlike energy right now. And if I were going to step into my true mature adulthood, what would things look like then? And to practice what that would look like as an adult with power who can make choices about their life and have their life turn out the way they would like it to be.
Yeah.
So that is how I use those. Those are just two examples. There's so many others, but examples of how when I'm feeling anxious, I say, oh, who's leading here? Who has the authority? Is my victim or my child leading here? Do they have the authority right now? Or and if so, how can I let the warrior, the guardian of self-esteem, is the fullest light of the victim archetype? So why don't we let them have some authority instead? And what would that feel like if they were running the show?
Fascinating.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that was fascinating.
Yeah.
And what about if you were to ask yourself a question like that and you didn't know what the answer was?
A question like, who has the authority?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you're feeling anxious and there's something very specific that's making you anxious, I don't know, maybe it's a financial problem or a problem with your partner, or there's something going on. Most of the time for people with anxiety, and I can speak for people with anxiety, is that they feel like they don't quite have the power to protect themselves or to protect the people they love in a certain situation. So that's a very disempowered state. So when you are in a disempowered state, the authority in your life is coming from your disempowered state, or you're giving your power over to something that you believe is oppressing you. That's what, like, who has the authority? If there's someone saying, making you anxious, if there's a financial situation that's looming over your head, then maybe that has the power over you. That seems to have the authority. So what we want to do is take our power back and say, no, I'm going to be an adult. I'm going to be the sovereign in my life. I'm going to have boundaries around this. I have tools to help me think about how I'm going to handle the situation. What would an empowered person do? What would a person who has sovereignty over their life do?
So
And
they would be the tools. You would ask yourself further questions.
you would ask yourself, yes, just to become conscious of your thought patterns. It's important to become conscious of, are you feeling disempowered? Are you feeling like you don't quite have the tools you need? Is there some outside force that's bigger than you, that's like sort of, in air quotes, making you feel this way? And if that's the case, what power do you have? What authority do you have to turn that around? It's a lot of times the boundaries that we need to have are not really around some outside force, although that's most definitely can happen. But a lot of times they're around our own thought patterns. What if you told your thought pattern, I am not going to allow myself to walk through the rest of this day feeling like a victim, for example?
I think, for a lot of people, especially, since COVID, it's difficult for some people to even venture out the front door, or even, just be going out to the grocery store or to wherever. That can cause all sorts of,
So some people, like
anxious
with
feelings.
agoraphobia, yeah, they're afraid to venture out. So if someone were coming to me with that situation, I would ask them what they would like to have in their life. Like, what's the vision for the life they would like to be living? What do they see themselves? What would they like to do? Would they like to be able to go to the grocery store whenever they feel like it, for example? And if that's the case, then I would probably start with the survivor archetypes, although everyone has a multitude of archetypes that are, the 4 we all have in common, but then there's 8 others that each person has that are different.
Right.
So, I mean, this is a
It
hypothetical
is a lot.
person. I would just work with those 4. But I would say, how do we go from your disempowered states, from your victim, from your child, from the prostitute, from the saboteur? And, each of those survival archetypes, according to Carolyn Mace, has a path forward from the shadow to the light. And we work with each one and maybe lay out exercises or journaling of how to step more into the light every day, do something toward the light. And a more empowered stance, a more confident stance than what they have. I can give a further example if that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Okay, so if someone is afraid to go out to the grocery store because COVID has gotten them all, worked up and afraid of germs, or just they've been inside for too long.
Yeah.
And I would say picture who you would like to be and how you would like to feel in your body. So if they would like to feel like someone who can stand tall and, take a walk or ride their bike to the grocery store, what needs to happen to get yourself from here to there? So, for example, the saboteur archetype is the in the shadow, the archetype. It wants to keep yourself safe, right? Like all these archetypes are here because we had to survive our childhood somehow. So if you say, okay, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to ride my bike to the grocery store, and then the saboteur that morning says, oh, you know what, it's just really not a good idea. I might catch a cold, I might run into somebody, gives you all the reasons why the things you need to do, the things you really want to do, is really not such a good idea after all. That's the saboteur in action.
Yes.
So what I would say was, the light side of the saboteur is called the guardian of choice. So what is one small choice you might be able to make today to get you one step closer to your goal? So if you were going to ride your bike to the grocery store and you were having all kind of thoughts about all of a sudden why that's a bad idea, then what's one act of courage you could take? Maybe it's going out to the garage to making sure there's air in your bike tires, even if that's just the first thing that you do and you don't get to the grocery store at all. And then the next day, what's the next thing? Maybe practice riding your bike around the block, and then the next day. And so you're just making small choices every day until you develop the courage that you need to do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah. So I have a question. So you practiced as a psychotherapist and then you kind of moved into this field, and you find that this field's so much more beneficial working with the archetypes.
Well, I think it's different. I wouldn't say necessarily more beneficial. I mean,
Right.
psychotherapy is deeply, profoundly important. And I'm very, very glad there are psychotherapists out there who are committed to that path. And I also am committed to that path. Psychotherapy is a lot more about untangling the knots of the past and kind of getting into deep trauma, being a voice or being the receptor of compassionate witness to some stories that people are holding. I mean, very, very important work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, my question is, it's interesting that you're venturing sort of into this pathway and incorporating that into your work.
Right.
And
Well,
that was the reason, the question, really.
Well, archetypal consulting, I believe, takes you to the next level. Like, what is the possibility and the potential for your life? What is the vision that you have, and how can we get you to move into the vision? It's less about untangling the past and more about what are the patterns you see? How can you step into the divine patterns that are laid out for your life within the archetypes that you have identified as yours in this lifetime? It's similar but different work. And I'm very, very excited about I love words potential and possibility and divinity and the light side of things. And that's just seems to be where my career is shifting to.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not necessarily more beneficial one over the other.
Yes, so it's sort of incorporating the two.
Yeah, it's also sometimes when people are spent some time in therapy, they're ready for the next thing, the next level up, and this might be a good choice for them. If you've been in therapy for a while, you sort of understand where your shadow patterns come from, you understand your past, and you're really ready to step into the next level of empowerment. Those are the people I think that might truly benefit from some work with a spiritual director or an archetypal consultant.
Yeah, yeah. And so you did mention before that you have a free meditation that would
Yeah. So if you go to my website, which is yourradiantlife.net, there will be an option for signing up for a free meditation that I've developed. It's both you can do it written or audio, and it's called Unleash Your Inner Diva. And what it does is for people like me who sometimes need to be reminded how to stand tall, how to stand in your power. It's prompts all the way through. If you were gonna take on the persona of a diva, for example, well, what does a diva do? The diva is very confident in herself. The diva walks into a room and knows she owns the room. She knows all of her ideas are the best ones. So people just may as well not waste time and just listen to her in the first place. Like taking on an attitude like that, there's an air of nobility about her. There's an air of not putting up with people who would dominate her time with foolishness or immaturity. And, if we can get anyone to step into embodying that kind of power, there's much less room for self-doubt and anxiety in a case like that.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And imagining that you're that person and what she would be thinking and feeling.
And feeling especially, and like practicing to take that energy and go through the next couple of hours of your day. What would a diva be having for lunch? How would she pick up her children from school? And just be that person for a few hours and experiment what it feels like. And when then you find yourself falling back into your old patterns, maybe of being the saboteur or the victim or the child, then you sort of catch yourself. You say, whoa, okay, here I am going back to my old patterns. That's okay. Happens to all of us. What do I need to do to get myself out of the old patterns and get back into the energy that I find the most empowering for myself? It's like reminders of what our potential is, reminders of what our possibility is. Yeah.
Yeah. And are there any books that you would recommend for people if they were interested and they wanted to sort of find out more?
Well, Sacred Contracts for sure, a book written by Carolyn Mace. She's got a number of good of good books that she's written about healing and health and wellness. A lot of books on spirituality. One of my other favorite books is a book by Joe Dispenza called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that book was profoundly transformative for me.
Oh, really?
Anything by Cynthia Bourgeault. She's also another one of my favorites.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those are the three that I would recommend people look more into if they're wanting to get to the next level with their confidence, with their voice, with their spirituality.
Excellent, excellent. Ah, it's fascinating. Fascinating. So, and are you on Facebook, Instagram? Can people find you there?
I'm not on Instagram quite yet, although maybe by the time the podcast drops, I will be by then. I am on Facebook. My Facebook page is called Your Radiant Life with Carolyn Wallace. And I have all of my past podcast episodes on there. My blog is on there. All of the workshops that I'm doing, both in person and online, are posted there as well.
And what workshops are you doing?
Well, right now, I'm doing a workshop called Start Playing Big, Harness the Power of Archetypes to Elevate Your Confidence, Mind, and Life. And I'm doing that in various yoga studios that are just local to my area. I live in Western Massachusetts.
Oh,
And I'm
excellent.
going to start doing them online as well, sort of expand my audience a little bit.
Yeah,
If anybody
fascinating.
wanted to get on my mailing list, you do that through my website, and then you'll know what's coming, what events are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Fascinating. Yeah, really fascinating. So, Carolyn, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Kate, for having me, and all the best to you and your work too. I know you're providing a lot of support for people who really need it. So thank you for putting your work out there.
Thank you for saying that, Caroline. Thank you. And thank you to all the listeners. And before we can make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes so you never miss an episode. And if you get a moment, it'd be great if you could leave us a review also on whatever platform you listen. So thank you to everybody for listening. And I look forward to chatting with you in the next episode.